You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Our understanding of nutrition continues to be complex and filled with controversy. In the 1950s and 70s, we had discussions around fat and sugar, and then that was followed by discussions about supplementation, and rather supplementation was the key to treating chronic diseases. With so many differing opinions, it's been difficult to make any conclusions that works for the entire population. Is it possible that the controversy and the teaching surrounding eating more fruits and vegetables was wrong all along, and there's another way? Today's guest is someone whose research has led to a belief that, yes, maybe we've been traveling down the wrong path. Maybe the proper human diet is not eating fruits and vegetables. Today's guest is Joey Schwartz. Joey is only a 19-year-old UCLA student who's been researching the link between nutrition and disease in the scientific literature over the last few years. His research has led to the conclusion that a solely animal derived diet may be the most optimal diet for human health. He shares his insights via his personal coaching, as well as his wonderful YouTube channel, where he shares science, a host of personal experiences, and conducts podcasts around the carnivore diet and lifestyle. His hope is to provide the right tools and resources to help guests or those who view his channel or who benefit from his coaching towards a life where they're physically and mentally healthier using nutrition and lifestyle. With that, Joy, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Protecting Your Nest podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, man, and was very excited when I saw your young face, blasting the YouTube stratosphere with a ton of information, and easily know more about carnivore than me. so I really appreciate the research you've done, and as you help to make that one of the options that people should be more comfortable with. So when you think about all of that research you've done on nutrition as it relates to carnivore, what kind of led to you getting interested in the carnivore dietary pattern in the first place?
Yeah, so my family's super into nutrition. My mom's a nutritionist, and so I was just always fascinated by it, always being super careful with the way that I eat. But I found that it really wasn't working, and it really went downhill when I started trying to lift weights and get strong and doing the whole super low fat, only egg whites, bananas and whey protein and stuff like that. And, it got pretty bad, and my skin was really bad. I was chronically fatigued all the time, and I wasn't even putting on much muscle. I wasn't eating high quality animal food. I wasn't eating high quality animal fat. Your body doesn't really want to get stronger and grow when you're not feeding it proper nutrients. And I wasn't doing that. So I realized, there's a problem here. I'm young. I should be able to put on muscle. I should be able to maintain a good physique and feel good all the time, but I wasn't. And I had just a feeling that it was diet related. I hadn't done too much research into it, but I had a feeling, and I've always been one to trust my instincts. So I started just going at it, trying to understand, and really quickly realized that keto was a way to go. So instantly I'm basically going keto, low carb, realizing that carbs are actually potentially causing all this fatigue. That didn't take much time at all. But then what did take time is realizing that vegetables are bad, and nuts and seeds. That was tough, because that took some real deprogramming. We had been told, watch your breads, watch your rice and pastas, and that had been spread all around. But the nuts, the vegetables, that was like, wow, that was right. Weird. That was weird. And the way I realized was from watching Paul Saladino. I mean, he was talking about kale is BS, and he's walking around, broccoli is crap, and these are processed, and these are full of toxins. Well, what do you mean they're full of toxins? I mean, like, how could that be the case? And then I just looked up, well, what is a vegetable? I saw a plant, and the vegetables are the nuts, the roots, the leaves, the stems, the tubers, the bulbs, everything besides the fruit, the stuff that defends the fruit, that fosters the growth of the fruit. So I, abandoned what I did on keto, with plant-based keto with olive oil and all that crap and vegetables and seeds. And I did meat and fruit for 6 months. And I was having steak and eggs, and I would have a bunch of berries and honey afterwards. And I was doing so much exercise that I burned the carbs so fast. It didn't really have a problem for me, but I didn't have optimal energy at all. And it wasn't long before I realized it was like a cold day and I'm having some fruit. And I'm thinking to myself, how's this? Why am I doing this? Like, it's a cold day outside. Like the fruit isn't really in season. My
Mhm.
orange tree outside doesn't have any oranges on it. Why am I eating some fruit? It doesn't make sense. And I, kind of started realizing that I don't need the fruit, that it would be better if I just did meat. And I've been watching some Ken Berry stuff and Jordan Peterson on Rogan and a little bit of Anthony Chafee, I think, here and there. So I was familiar with the concept of carnivore and just did it. And it's been 7 months now since going carnivore. And I've been just researching the whole way, dabbling in raw meat, dabbling in dairy, trying to really figure out things, learn them, figure out the way humans should eat, and just heal from a lifetime of not eating so well.
What I love is that you have become a social media and well, YouTube influencer for sure. And if it were not for people like yourself and Dr. Kim Berry, Dr. Chafee, et cetera, Dr. Sal, Dr. Paul, what happens is people never get the message. So it's really important that you're out there spreading your message, and maybe you'll touch on a demographic that otherwise wouldn't have paid attention. Maybe Dr. Kim Berry and myself are too old, right? So maybe you'll touch on that college age person who's like, man, I'm not feeling good. I'm not sure why. I'm trying to eat all these plants and it's supposed to be helping me, but I feel sicker. And yet they hadn't heard the message. And because we have guys like you, thank God. And I know it must have been really hard because, I had learned that you grew up in a home with a nutrition person yourself, which was your mom. Who will influence you more than your mom or your parents, right? So, in my training, carnivore was not discussed at all. And I was a little, somewhat shocked by that they didn't even talk about it. So what's happened in your home? Because I know her training probably did not suggest carnivore was the right diet. How did your mom respond to that and approach you when you came up with this idea?
So my mom's like me in a lot of ways. She's very open-minded and willing to accept the other side. But the difference is it's been, over 50 years of programming for her, and it was only 18 for me. So it's a bit different, because there was a lot that she would have had to neglect. And I understand it being harder for people who are older to forget everything that they're told and embrace a new path. But she's working on it, and she's like, she understands that carnivore is good because she understands the arguments. Any reasonable person would understand that this works. And she definitely does. And it's fun because I'm at home and I hear her on the phone with her clients telling them to eat more meat. And it's really starting to
Wow.
catch on. And before it would have been, eat more salads, but now she's saying eat steaks, eat steaks, put butter on them. And she's, it's really great. But when I started, it wasn't so great because it was like, Joey, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
You are going to kill yourself, And I was just trying to explain it to her because when I was doing fruit, it was fine. It was fine because there was still color on the plate and nobody
Mhm.
really likes vegetables anyway. So, it was no big deal. When all the color left and it was just meat and eggs, then I ran into some problems, but I've been able to defend myself. And this whole time I've been really focused on making sure I understand what I'm doing so I can just deflect their criticisms back onto them.
Yeah.
Well, you're missing out on vegetables. Well, vegetables are toxic. Here's some studies showing that lectins, oxalates are, going to lead to terrible health outcomes. And so just been able to do that.
Well, I'll tell you this, if you can convince your mom, that's huge because and again, even with her more open personality, it's hard sometimes for parents to hear their kids in a way that's objective, And so the fact that she was able to do that says a lot about her and also says a lot about your ability to at least state your case. So that's really cool. And I appreciate you being courageous enough to do that. Now you're in school, and I'm curious, what you're studying and what your goals are from an educational perspective.
Hmm. This has been hard because I was very much, grappling with the idea of going to med school, becoming a doctor, doing that whole long process. But it's a long process.
Mm.
It's a lot of work. And not only is it a lot of work, but it's a lot of education about stuff that I would never want to implement in practice. Like I would never want to be the person using drugs, basically ever. I'd rather take a nutritional approach and really rarely have to use any sort of drug, which is what most doctors use. It's what most doctors practice is predicated on the prescription of drugs. So it would have been a tough situation for me because it would have been almost a waste of 4 years because the important stuff I would take from that 4 years would be very minimal. It would be very minimal. So I'm I'm still, deciding. Maybe you can give me your thoughts, but I'm thinking more I'll get a degree and take some science classes, some classes that would satisfy the requirements to go pre-med. And then if I don't get all those requirements, I could take some extra classes at a college. And then eventually, if I ever wanted to do to go to med school, I would have the option after taking a couple more classes or doing whatever, just so it's not totally gone. But it's tough. It's really tough. So I went to school as a business econ major, and then I switched to psychobiology because it's a pre-med major. And I was like, for a week, I was like, okay, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to do all that. And then I just kind of realized this is not something I want to do, at least now at this stage of my life. And so now I'm not staying at UCLA. I'm going to travel and I'm going to do an online degree, I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I got my MBA online with University of Phoenix. I also got my master's in nutrition from University of Western State. So I like online education because it creates flexibility. There is no right answer to your comments or your question. But I will say this. When I got my master's in nutrition, I faced the same, conundrum. It's like, well, they're more plant-based, right? So, but what was good about it is that I was able to get the biochemistry education and those things you can still learn on your own. But it was able, being out of school, I mean, I'm 54, so I'm more than twice your age, right? And so it was nice to review the biochemistry so that when I have, conversations with other influencers, I can, I would have reviewed it in that sense. So I think the thing that you need to do and what I would recommend, since my sons are 23 and 25, right, is what is your life purpose? Why are you here? And then you have to say, okay, now that for me it's, teaching metabolic health and helping people. Once you kind of define what your purpose is, and then you say, well, what's the best way for me to achieve that? It may be just become a bigger YouTuber and you influence people that way. And you may save more lives doing that than you'll ever do in a clinic, right? So that's the first kind of what's the best path. The other thing to think about, if you go to your education and you say, well, if I'm coming from a different perspective because I've done all this research, maybe I can then influence that education and the people in that system so that they'll be able to see the world through a different lens. But my vision is, help people achieve metabolic health. And for you, you have to decide what your vision is and then what's the best way to get there. So there's no right or wrong answer. There's some credibility that comes from having these degrees behind your name. That's one of the reasons why I got a master's in nutrition. I didn't want to be on CNN there saying, well, you're a doctor. What do you know about nutrition? So I think for me personally, I needed to check that box. But I think for you, you have to just decide what impact am I trying to have and what's the best way to get there. But so the good thing is that you're pausing. You're not being, when there's a book that I plan to do a video about called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it's just a nurse who talked to people who are dying. One of the regrets was to not live the life that I was supposed to live because I was just doing what other people told me to do. That's one of the 5 regrets. So you won't have that regret because you've already made a decision. I'm going to do what's best for me. So I think that's great. Had you taken any nutrition courses at all since you've been in school, or was that all just your own research?
It was all my own research. Yeah, I didn't take any nutrition courses. I have friends who did though, and they were telling me about it because they knew what I was talking about, and they were learning, the food pyramid, just kind of ridiculous stuff. But
That's right.
yeah, did you got your undergrad and then you got a master's? Did you go to med school after that?
I actually did, and the master's is more recent. So I actually finished med school years ago, and I literally got my master's degree this year in 2022. So what I found was, you know what did it? I can't remember who it was, but there was this. I think they were on the doctors or something. It was a fairly well-known influencer who was being questioned about nutrition. And they just tore into them. And the first thing she said, I've been in nutrition forever. What do you know about nutrition? With a very angry tone. You may
It
have, I don't
was
know.
it
You
was
remember
Paul
that?
Saladino. It was Paul
Yeah, that was
Saladino.
Paul. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I think in that moment, I was like, okay, now, maybe you and Dr. Chafee, Dr. Kim Berry would have been kind of more prepared for that moment, because sometimes you gotta just be, because I see you have a lot of vegans and others on your channel, right? So a lot of times it takes having a conversation. What are the talking points? How do you rebut the ridiculous statements that were made? But the first thing she said was, "You're not qualified." So I think for me, that was what triggered me to say, do I ever want to be in this position where they say I'm not qualified? And I'm in a health system. So in a health system where everybody follows the conventional thinking, if I'm going to lead my organization, it'll be better to say I'm board certified in obesity medicine, have a master's in nutrition. I also have business talent because I have an MBA. So those types of things in a conventional setting are more helpful. In private practice, it shouldn't matter. On YouTube, it shouldn't matter as much. So I think that those are the things that you think about, and that's kind of how I ended up here. So I'm really happy I did it, even though I'm so happy, not with all due respect, that I'm not in school anymore. Because school does kind of kick your butt a little bit, which is amazing that you even find time to even do what you're doing. So how are you managing with the food, carnivore diet in school? My kids both are WashU graduates in St. Louis, one still in graduate school. They have a phenomenal cafeteria that's somewhat flexible, but how have you been able to manage your diet in that setting?
So the morning they have hard-boiled eggs, just a big bowl of them. So I'll just do that, like ton of them, like 10 hard-boiled eggs. And then there's bacon that's not cooked in seed oils. So I'll do that too. It's salt. There's a lot of salt on it, which kind of sucks. It's so salty, but
Yeah.
it's fine. It is what it is. And then let's see. So for dinners, a lot of times there'll be just a piece of a protein. Like there'll be a pork tenderloin or there'll be a piece of fish. Sometimes they do lamb chops, which like once a week, which is awesome. They'll do a steak or something every now and then. Pork chops, if I didn't say that already. So they do a piece of meat for dinner. For lunch, I usually will just have some myself. And I mean now yeah, so it was manageable. Like it was not too difficult. I had to make sure it wasn't cooked in canola oil because half
Right.
of it was.
Yeah.
So if it's extra virgin olive oil, which some they kind of pick and choose, it's very strange how they pick what is in olive oil versus what's in canola oil. It's really weird. But I mean, half the things are cooked in seed oils, so it's like they show all the ingredients on the online restaurant menu thing, and so you could see, and it's all oils. It's really bad, but so yeah. At this point, I'm not at school anymore. I'm leaving for the quarter, and I'm gonna go away. But it hasn't been too bad. It got difficult when I realized I wanted to try doing more raw meat just to as an experiment. So at that point, it was a bit difficult because they're not going to serve you raw meat,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
But yeah, so it was manageable. Yeah.
Yeah, I find when I was a vegetarian and a vegan at times for 8 years, I found that it's always harder to do that. I find it's always easier to, just say, just give me some meat. Not always ideal in restaurants because they try to, you're paying more for stuff you're not even eating. But I think that's the kind of world I want to live in, where a la carte becomes like normal, or people have at least, regular plus, you'll have an option. So I think that's kind of what I want to see in the future. Any You're young, but did you have any physical or mental challenges? Anything that the carnivore diet helped to resolve?
Yeah, I was pretty tired a lot. So I had a lot of fatigue and my brain fog wasn't too pleasing. That wasn't fun at all. Not even being able to think, being so easily distracted. And like there's just a cloud all over your brain. You can't pull out experiences, you can't pull out words or
Mm,
memories, or you can't think as creatively. Like now I'm so much more innovative. I'm so much more able to do things. And I was never like that before because I was eating a lot of bad foods, a lot of vegetables. For me, it was the vegetables that were bad. Like the sugar was bad. All that stuff wasn't great, but it was the vegetables that really were bad for me. I realized it's the spinach, it was the broccoli, there was the big salads. That stuff was killing me,
mm.
wrecking my brain, making me feel so bad. And yeah, so also just physical performance, athletic performance, those went up drastically. I've always been into soccer, and when I went carnivore, my coach had told me, this is the greatest improvement I've ever seen in my 20 years of coaching. The improvement from going meat and fruit to only meat. I could run
Hmm.
I could run nonstop. Like I was so good at soccer at that point. And it's just really made me better. I can put on muscle very easily right now. If I just, do a couple sets a day, I can actually get pretty strong. So everything has gotten better.
You know what I remember when I interviewed Dr. Anthony Chafee, he blew my mind when he's a big muscular guy, rugby guy, right? And he said, "Oh yeah, sometimes I'll exercise a couple of times a week, sometimes I'll skip 2 to 3 weeks." And he still looks like this Adonis, right? So man, if you get protein in your body and you have some level of exercise, you can build muscle. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Limitless. Where there was this like pill NZT something 48. There was a pill that the actor took in the movie. And when he took that movie, everything came clear. He got all this energy. And if you haven't seen that movie, it's a lot of fun. You may want to check that out. It's called Limitless, right? And I'm not suggesting that it was as effective as a pill when I, went keto, ketovore, etc. But I'm gonna tell you something. My mental clarity just like whoosh, it was like, it's like superpowers. Even sometimes I feel like I just drank coffee. It's like you just have a certain level of clarity, a certain level of focus and that's what happened to my sons. Those two sons I mentioned, Brandon and Justin, who are, went to Wash U and one of them still there. They had their best grades when they did intermittent fasting, and they more of a keto, but when they went to like a carb restricted diet, intermittent fasting, grades just shot through the roof. So for anybody that is in school and they're looking for an easy way to improve their grades, this is definitely one of them, because who needs to be tired all the time as we're trying to, get that education. Now, one of the things I always wondered when I understood who you were and what you were about, UCLA and school, and you're cranking out videos like a madman, right? So I was like, what the hell? So how in the world? And I'm busy too. And I'm like, so what I do is this is what I do. I cheat. I do a podcast. I do a video short with my guests. And so that's 2 videos. I just don't have time. I want to start doing an extra video or two a week as well, but it's busy. How in the world do you have time? I mean, what's a typical day for you that you would have time to even make videos and put all that content out there?
So first thing in the morning, what I do is I don't look at my phone. I'll just go out in the sun and like stare at the sun. So that's that immediately, I try to go to the grass so I can like take my shoes off and be grounded. But if I can't do that, I'll just go look right at the bright lights and just get that response. That's amazing. Because everyone else, they wake up, check their phone, quick dopamine, like right to the brain. It's not like that for me. I realized really early on there's no way that could be good for you. So that's my first thing. And then maybe after 20, 30 minutes of just thinking, relaxing, I'll go back and then I just start working. And so, maybe I think my sleep schedule now is like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. or something. So I get 8 hours and I'm up, and then by 8 a.m. maybe I'll eat something really quick and then I just go. So I mean, let me see. So what does my day look like? I probably record 2 podcasts a day now, so I have a bunch saved up just like as a backlog. So that probably takes 3, 4 hours. And then sometimes I'll edit them, sometimes I won't. I have to go find a certain point in the video to like clip it, put it that at the beginning, so it's a good 30-second intro. And then so maybe it's 5 hours total for the podcast. And then let's see. So I do have like other work to do. I'm trying to start the clothing line, started a forum, made a website. I don't know. I work very efficiently now. So before it was, constantly checking my phone as I'm writing an essay, maybe 20 minutes I'm writing the essay and then I'll check my phone, go through Instagram, call a friend, text people back, and then I'm back at it again. And it's just 20, 10, 20, maybe 30-minute break this time, maybe an hour break next time, maybe
Mm-hmm.
in 5-minute break this time. Now it's just I'm locked in and my work time is my work time and my not work time is my not work time. And it's
Oh.
it's very distinguished. So I can, work pretty well. But every day is a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing school with it was not too difficult. School was, especially first quarter, it was very easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like easier than high school was. So there was, it was no big deal. Yeah.
That's very helpful. My oldest son, Brandon, that's kind of what he's doing. He wants to work on a clothing line. So he actually graduated from grad school, and we're like, don't get a job. Let's see if we can make this business thing work first. So we're kind of fingers crossed trying to figure that out. But I love going backwards. You're so wise, start your day with some sunshine. Right now, I'll cheat in that I'll have the mood light, the little lamp, the Philips light, and I'll sit in front of the desk. Because sometimes in Chicago, where I live, now where are you at now exactly?
LA. So
LA. Okay. So we don't get as much sunlight. So I'll put the light in front of me. But man, that's a great way to start today. And I'll be honest, uh, not looking at your phone when you wake up is like, that's hard. That's like, it's like a drug, man. We're looking for that dopamine. And
it's
especially,
hard.
especially when you're a social media person and you're a YouTuber, you're trying to see what's going on. And man, so I really applaud you for recognizing how important that was. That's why I have a nest, right? And that S is for sleep and stress. Got to get that sleep. And speaking of the nest and rope, I think about the rope with the P for pollutants. Now, I went to school in New Orleans, and man, in New Orleans, the legal drinking age was 18, not 21. And when I became 21, they changed it to 21. So if I wanted to drink, I was in the right city at the right time. But alcohol is not only a toxin, but it's also not very carnivore. So as a college student who's surrounded by alcohol, how in the heck do you manage that in an environment where you're trying to be carnivore, but you're also trying to be social with your buddies?
Yeah, so I was for the first maybe month of college, I was drinking, so like a couple nights a week actually. And it I found I was much more able to tolerate it, although it tasted worse than it ever had before. Like it tasted bad because my body knew that this
Mm-hmm.
is a clear poison. And before I went to college, I watched a 3 hour Andrew Huberman video on what alcohol does. So I knew what alcohol does. It is not just a poison that should be avoided like everything else. It is incredibly dangerous. It is incredibly toxic. It destroys brain cells. It just lowers testosterone. It's bad in every single way. And I knew that going in. I tried to, but again, being around people when everyone else was drunk at parties, not having drank like at all, even a little bit, it made it really, really weird and hard to socialize. But then after a month, I just realized, what am I doing here? This is not for me. I'm trying to do something really, really important with my life. I know that I'm special in a lot of ways, and I'm here at a party, doing this with people who don't really have goals and who are just going to stay in the system and leave college and not contribute anything to the world, probably just be a parasite like a lot of people are. So I just, I realized this, this is not for me, and I stopped and haven't done anything since because I just know what it does, and I'm trying to really focus now and spend the next few years working hard because if I'm not going to be at UCLA, if I'm going to get an online degree, I need to prove to my parents, I need to prove to myself that I made the
Yeah.
right choice. So I can't really be messing around like that anymore.
I definitely agree that sometimes your habits a lot of times will reflect your level of success. And that doesn't mean that I was just watching some interesting stuff on Netflix about a famous person who was a comedian and he ended up dying, but he was using a lot of substances. So I know in certain environments it's more prevalent than others. But I'm gonna tell you something, when I was in college, I would always have a glass of soda. Now we now know soda is a poison too, but I would have a glass of soda in my hand so that my friends won't ask me to have it because they couldn't tell if it was a soda if it was drink. So I would always have a glass and I walk around with that same soda, in my hand just to not deal with the drama. But now I know, even as I think about diabetes, it's hard to have normal blood sugars if you're drinking alcohol. It has a it really it causes it increases your risk for hypoglycemia. It can increase risk for hyperglycemia. It also there's something called hypoglycemia unawareness. So you don't even know your sugars are low because the alcohol blunts your awareness. So it's all kind. We can make a list of things that alcohol can negatively affect, and I just think that we need to be aware of those things. So ketovore, I know Nisha Berry is kind of in the ketovore stratosphere. So I wanted to get your thoughts on when someone can tolerate vegetables a little bit better. Is it okay from your perspective to do ketovore versus carnivore? What's been your thoughts when you talk to people and coach people?
Yeah. Well, carnivore is way more therapeutic than ketovore because you're not having the gut-wrenching toxic plant matter. But when your gut is healed after a certain amount of time, if you can tolerate things, then I mean, I don't really see much of a problem to be totally honest. I probably won't stay carnivore my whole life, but I've gut problems that I need to fix. Like my skin is still pretty red. I'm not fully healed at all. And so I need to be well again before I can, start incorporating anything. And when I do start to incorporate stuff, it's going to be cooked to death vegetables that have nothing left in them, like no lectins, no oxalates. I'm going to cook the hell out of those things and hopefully, be able to tolerate them. Carrots, some onions, just some basic plant food. So I can go to a friend's house and I don't have to give them special instructions or, just
Right.
to make life a little bit more normal. But I would never stop preaching a carnivore diet because we see how therapeutic it is for people, and it is so good for people to do for maybe even a couple years or a few years, or as long as they want to, because it's
Yeah.
clearly a sustainable option. It's just if someone really wants to, you know, be able to be a bit more, I guess traditional in social settings. I mean, I think being ketovore is still a great option.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you 100%. Like, and even in my functional medicine nutrition training, it was clear that if you're gonna, figure out what's wrong with you, you have to eliminate stuff. So there's no question that the carnivore diet is the number one elimination diet on the planet because you eliminate all of the crap that can harm you, not just the processed foods, but the plants and those anti-nutrients and the other things that can irritate you. So I'm a big fan of that. And I think that that's a great place for people to be. And if you're going to add back, you need to certainly listen to your body, and your body will tell you. And now you have permission not to add back the things that your body tells you it doesn't like because you're going to get all the nutrients in essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. So no need to do that. So a couple of fun questions I wanted to ask you. Number one is, your favorite way to eat meat. What would you say is your favorite way?
Uh, so if we're going for taste, I like a medium rare tomahawk. That's amazing. I love the stuff with the bone. That's my favorite. And if there's no tomahawk, a ribeye will do without the bone. That's fine. And then So the best for how I feel, I have two options. Number one, being raw meat with raw butter. That makes me feel the best. Just basically raw cut up meat. I like veal actually. So my local butcher has some pretty affordable veal that I will cut up and eat and with raw butter. So that's great. And then the other thing that makes me feel really good is a warm oxtail soup, something like that. Oxtail is phenomenal,
Mm.
just all that collagen rich stuff. It's so nourishing for the gut. All that collagen and all that fat and cholesterol is just a great way to heal. And at this time of year when it's cold out, it's a pretty ancestrally consistent thing. It's valued in a lot of cultures, the oxtail. So those are my favorite things. I just love stuff with the bone. That's what I prioritize. Ribs, short ribs. It's just all that stuff is great.
As you were talking, I realized those are my favorites too. And the oxtail I love. I just haven't really been making it, but I'm gonna tell you something, man. Tomahawk is like foreplay in this house. Like
Yeah,
you bring me a tomahawk, that's a good thing. And
yeah.
ribeye is definitely something I eat the most because it's just easier. And I love both of those. So I'm really in love with those choices. What about I know you're going to be doing transitioning away from UCLA to virtual education, but what's been your favorite subject in school?
I like writing. I've always loved writing. I have a good way with words when I write stuff, and it's just I love putting sentences together. I don't know, it's just something about it that just really makes me happy. So that's my favorite thing. I'm not a fan of math at all. Don't like calculus. Never been good at it. Probability is it really interesting to me. I actually like probability a lot. English and probability are probably two of my favorites. And I would say science or biochemistry or physiology, but I've never taken those classes.
Right.
And they've never been offered to me in high school, and in college I'll probably take them. So maybe those will become my new favorites so I can really start to understand how the human body works. Maybe that will really appeal to me. But so far, probability and English, I think those are my favorites.
Yeah, you're right about your speculation about the sciences. You clearly are doing your own version of that education, and I definitely think that that's going to happen as you get more experience. And again, it's going to be easier because you've taken the time to learn what you've learned. When you spend your free time beyond, I would even go beyond, making content and being a student. What do you like to do for fun?
I like nature, man. I love being out in nature, being standing in the grass, thinking, going on hikes, going to the beach, swimming. I A lot of people like the video games and the stuff like that. I just like being outside. That is
Yeah.
my thing. And the more deeper I've gone into carnivore, the more I realize I want to live a life in nature. I want to live on a farm with livestock, with a lot of kids,
Yeah.
with going hunting with my kids, and I want to be in nature. That makes me so happy. So the more I've deprogrammed, gotten all the BS out of my mind, I realize this is what I want. Just a very raw, natural life. That I think those things make me really happy. Also, being around like-minded people is a really happy thing for me. When I'm with people who aren't so brainwashed, who understand what's been going on the last few years, who just have a really clear sense of reality, that makes me really happy as well. Because I spend a lot of time with people who don't really understand things, who haven't gotten out of the matrix, you could say.
Nice. Well, I agree. And well, the low carb community has done that for me. And I don't hang out with a lot of people, but knowing that I have people I can connect with in the low carb community has been doing exactly that for me as well. So let's think big picture now. Trying to create a world where those non-traditional dietary patterns like carnivore are more accepted, right? And viewed in a more positive way. Um, what do you think is going to be net? What do we have to do to make that happen? Because I know we're doing the work we're doing, but what else needs to happen for the world to see carnivore in a more positive light?
Um, so it's a non we need to make it normal.
Right.
That's the only way for something to be viewed as normal, I guess, would be to make it normal. And so we need widespread adoption. This needs to be understood. The way to make this an accepted way of eating is to really just push the results, make them clear to everyone, make it obvious that people are really, really benefiting from this, and that veganism is the worst thing on the worst way of eating on earth. And as soon as people can start to really grasp this idea, veganism is bad, eating meat is good, it can really start to be normalized. We can start to not have to worry about this. You won't need to, worry about getting your medical license revoked for
Right.
telling your patients to eat lots of meat, or telling them that it's safe in pregnancy, which it clearly is, but you might get in trouble for that. So, there's a lot that needs to change, and the way it will be changed is by making the message clearer.
Yeah, and that's still, I know Professor Tim Noakes had to deal with that, in South Africa, and there are others who get letters periodically, even in 2022, that have suggested that what they're teaching, even just basic low carb, is somehow dangerous. And I agree with you. What's dangerous about eating a steak is it's just the craziest stuff on the planet. So let's think about the future. Right now, you're a pretty healthy guy. You're healing even from the minor, shouldn't call it minor, but the things that you've had to struggle with. So how are you going to protect your nest over the next 12 months? What areas do you plan to focus on to make sure you're staying healthy?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a dopamine fast at some point, because while I don't check my phone right in the morning, it's so hard not to like go to YouTube and check the comments or just check stuff, and it's addictive. It really is. So I'm gonna try to just schedule 2 weeks of videos and put my phone down and dopamine fast for 2 weeks, see how I feel after that. I'm going to make sure I'm getting, prioritizing optimal sunlight throughout the day, getting it in the morning, seeing the sun, set at night. That's extremely important. And just fortifying relationships with people. I think that's essential. Even though I'm busy and I'll be traveling, I'm gonna do my best to meet people and form relationships. It's not easy, because these next few years are going to be a lot when I'm doing online school and also continuing the channel and trying to make
Mhm.
things and prove to people that I made the right choice by not staying at UCLA, which is world renowned, really good school. So it's going to be busy, but I will make sure I'm on track with the making sure I'm okay.
And we're all gonna struggle with making sure we prioritize others, but I absolutely think that that's the key. In fact, I'm gonna send you one of my leaders in our health system. I'll put it in the show notes, shared this incredibly cute video that talked about making sure we prioritize the right things. So I'll put it in the show notes to the podcast, and I'll make sure that I send it to you directly. It just puts it in perspective, and I think it'll speak to what you just said. Dopamine fast. I hadn't really heard that term, but that makes sense. Take a break. And a lot of people, they may do blue blockers at night to help them sleep, but they'll
Oh
forget
yeah.
about you need sunlight during the day, right? So you do the blue blockers at night, and then you do this, but you got to get the sunlight during the day so you can get that circadian rhythm. So all of those sound wonderful, and I appreciate all of those. So with that, let's make sure our audience knows how to reach you, your wonderful YouTube channel, and your coaching. How can they get that information?
Yeah, so the channel is Carnivore Camaraderie. It's carnivorecamaraderie.com for my website, where you can book consults and just check out my stuff, and carnivore_camaraderie on Instagram. It's been great speaking to you.
Yeah, it's been fun. And again, you're not my son, but I'm very proud of you. So, and I'll say that because my kids are older than you. So, really appreciate all you're doing. And yes, we need some camaraderie. We need somebody to help us along our way. And I'm glad that you're one of them. So, thanks again, Joy, for being with us today, and continue your great success, my friend.
Appreciate it.
All right. So when Joy saw that his current dietary approach was not serving him, instead of accepting it and the status quo, he said, you know what? I'm going to do some research and do my own personal experiments. And that led him to carnivore. So let's follow Joy's lead. And if you are not getting the results you desire, do your own experiment. And no matter what dietary pattern you end up with, just know that if you choose carnivore, you can feel a little bit more confident that that's safe and okay to do. So I just appreciate you, Joey. I appreciate all of you who have come to this channel. And I just want to thank you guys for just learning and growing as we kind of take this journey towards metabolic health. So with that, guys, I hope that you continue to take care of yourself, be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.